So hopefully that's not too distracting, but we're going to give it just a couple minutes for people to kind of filter in, allow people to come on in. And while we're doing that, we'll probably just walk through kind of how the showcase workshop was going to go, what we know about the annual meeting, and kind of give everybody an opportunity to meet some of the people that are planning the overall annual meeting. Our two program chairs, Carrie and Dave, are here, so you'll have an opportunity to meet them and ask them some questions. We're also joined by some folks from headquarters. That's Janice and Nicole. So they'll be here as well, kind of showing you some things about what we know, what we don't know about the annual meeting up to this point. And then there is an entire ad hoc team that's focused on just showcases. And so that's led by John Bangoff, who you'll be hearing from as well. I'm talking a little bit about some of the details of what your in-person experience will be like, as well as where we've come to at this point. And you'll be hearing plenty of talking from me. I'll be talking about kind of the overview of how this is going to be working and just kind of where we came from and why it's being done this way. Because I know many of you probably have questions about why did you change the name? Why are things changing? This doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't really know what this is. But hopefully by the end of this, we'll have explained that, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and really that it's not that much of an overall change to what you've seen over the last couple of years. But hopefully it's something that gets your wheels turning with really how a virtual poster and now what we call a showcase can work in a hybrid environment. And we're pretty excited about this. Our whole ad hoc team, some of the folks are here. They're going to be kind of helping out at the latter stages of this workshop. We're going to break out into a couple different rooms, and we're going to actually give you an opportunity to start brainstorming how you could start your showcase, both from the perspective of if you're attending in person and then whether you're attending virtually. So hopefully by the time that you walk away from this, your wheels are turning on, I could do it this way, I could do it that way. And instead of being anxious that you don't have the poster that you know and love, you'll have the showcase that you're starting to think, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do it this way. And it's a little bit more of an opportunity rather than feeling like it's something different for him. So I did want to introduce some of the folks that you'll be hearing from when we break out. Joining us is Brandon Black, who's a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Huntsville, Alabama. Jared Allen, Weather Service in Cheyenne. He's a board and coordination meteorologist there. Pat Highland. I actually don't know what your title is there now at the Sims, right? Is that where you're at now, Pat?
Ciro now, yeah.
Ciro,
sorry. Meteorologist, yeah, you got it.
So I think you've had 3 different titles since I've known you. So, and we have Melissa Sizemore, who's joining us also. She's the emergency manager in Jefferson County, Alabama. And of course, we have Dave and Carrie, who are both going to be our program chairs for this year's annual meeting. And for those who hadn't hopped on yet, Janice Bunting, our CEO, and Nicole Van Every, working at headquarters, are also here to be able to answer some of your questions as well. There's a whole lot of people on this call, so I'm pretty excited, but I lost all the people that I thought were associated with the meeting, with coordinating this. So did I forget any of our introductions? No, I don't think so. Okay. All right, so I hear less ding-dongs coming in. So I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of get started on what we're doing here. We put together a little bit of a short presentation. I want to walk through a little bit about how this workshop itself is going to work. And then we're gonna hopefully answer a bunch of your questions. I'm sure you have a lot. If you haven't been following along with some of the email traffic thus far about showcases, I'm sure you have a lot. Hopefully we'll answer most of them just here in the first 30 minutes. And then once we feel comfortable that your questions are answered, that's when we're going to move over to actually brainstorming how you can get started on your topic, share your topic, and be like, I'm not sure how I would do this way, and maybe we can help you. Our ad hoc team is here to answer those questions. And honestly, I'm excited about that because even when we were doing just posters in person, I had a lot of questions about my first time doing a poster. I didn't really know how to do one to get started. I had asked a lot of questions to colleagues, and many of them hadn't done a poster before. So even if we were just doing traditional posters, this is kind of an awesome idea, I think, to be able to brainstorm how I would do one, how I would design it. And you will have an opportunity to share some of the things you've learned at other conferences. This is really what this is supposed to be, a think tank for getting ideas off the ground. So let me dive into kind of our little presentation here. And I wanted to showcase a little bit about Showcase, no pun intended, what these showcases are, how this overall workshop will go, why you're here. We're going to talk about the background of changing the name from virtual posters to showcases. And I think 90% of the questions will be answered that really not that much is changing. What is changing here is that in the last 2 years, we've had virtual conferences. Last year at the NWA, we had a hybrid conference, but it was very lightly attended. We only had, I think, a little over 100 people total that were there, and we have quite a few more that are expected this year. But we're also expecting quite a few people to be virtual. So while we're embracing a hybrid, what does that mean for how we change things, how the experience will be in person, and how that experience will be virtual? We're going to give you an opportunity to have a tour of the Whova app. If you are familiar with it from the last 2 years, you've seen it, and you probably are familiar, but we'll refresh your memory on it. But more importantly, if you haven't been to a conference, this is your first one, understanding the app is one of the key fundamental things. Is what do I have to play with? What are my options? What does it look like? So when you walk in, you're not learning it from day one, trying to navigate your way around. So we are going to show you what your space is going to look like in the app here on this call. We're also going to talk a little bit about the logistics of trying to do this in person. Are we going to have an in-person session? The answer is yes. And what is that going to look like interacting with the virtual space? How do we tackle posters all together? Tips for success, and how do you get started? And that's the fun part. That's hopefully the part that we spend the most of our time on, is breaking out into those sessions and getting started on what that's going to be. But here, we're not going to get to that point until we're comfortable with all of your questions being answered. And we really want you to ask them so that everybody hears the answer to that, so that we can try to address as many things as possible. So having said that, let's dive right on in. John, I'm going to probably throw things over to you since you and I were kind of doing this with the webinar. So pepper things in whatever you want. Really, the inspiration for showcases here is that the majority of this is that it's a name change. Really, that's it. We didn't want to call them posters because if you were part of the conference experience the last 2 years, or any conference for that matter, and you had to do a virtual poster, they're really not posters. They're not stagnant documents that you just referred to behind you like they were in a regular in-person poster. They had a lot of more options to them. Some conferences, including ours, gave you the ability to have a Google Meet or a Zoom that you could go to outside of the app, and you can really show whatever you wanted to. And it wasn't until you got there that you kind of realized that. I remember my first one, I had a PDF, and I added some little features to it, thinking ahead that I could add like a QR code, or I could add a hyperlink or something along those lines. But I more or less had just this one document that people kept, I had to keep posting. And I had the same questions I had with any posters. How do I fit all of this information into one little document to be able to answer all the questions that might come up? And as I was having my interactions with people, I was like, you know what? I got something I can show you real quick on the internet. Let me pull that up and show it to you. And then I kind of understood that, there's no rule saying I can't do this. I can't go show a YouTube video over here, or I could show this resource, or hey, there's this other thing that I didn't even think to include because I couldn't fit it on my poster. And so I started going to those sources, and there's really nothing stopping us from doing that. So as we continue to brainstorm what the future of posters were going to be, we started thinking, well, why would we limit people to, just one poster or just one 5-minute video? You still do those things, and that those things are going to be necessary for the actual app. But we're encouraging you to really explore the space that you have outside of the app as well. And that's going to open so many doors for you to be able to do a presentation, especially virtually, but also in person. So this graphic in front of you shows we used to do things like this, where we had a piece of paper. We stood in front of it. The conference provided you really just two things: the space and the board. That was it. Everything else you brought yourself. You were in charge of creating the poster. You were in charge of designing it. And if you've been to some of those posters, you've seen that a lot of people put notebook paper on push pins in there, and that was the choice that they made. And so you had the freedom to get either more or less creative based off of your preferences. But all the conference provided you was the space to do so. That's what we did when we virtualized posters too. You had the app, you had a space that you could upload your files, and then otherwise it was up to you to do your presentation. That was totally up to you. And you had the freedom of being able to do that in person with something like this or something like a Zoom, like I had mentioned before. And you could explore as much of the internet as you wanted to use to be able to make that point. And so that's really what this is. We're really just saying we're hoping that you encourage exploring your space. But there's a lot of questions I'm sure you have about, well, how do you do that? And then how do you go in person and do both at the same time? It's a very good question that we spent a lot of time actually talking about. So let's dive into this. Is where I'm going to bring you in, John. So if you remember some of these, what the conference experience and poster experience was like before, if you've been to other conferences before, this is really probably resonates with you. It's a fairly large room. Sometimes it's not that large. And you have a lot of people in it. It's pretty loud atmosphere. It's pretty busy. And it's kind of like, I make the joke that it's like window shopping for topics that you're interested in. So you're walking around reading titles. Some catch your eye just on the title itself. Some catch your eye on the design of the poster. Some catch your eye because you know that author and you didn't know that they were going to be there, or you want to engage with them. Some of you may have even heard about that poster and made a point to go to it. And so while you did that, you had your interaction with that particular poster, and then you would go in all over the place with that. For an extrovert like me, this was tons of fun, lots of fun. Before COVID, this was probably my favorite part of the conference. I got really down to the nitty gritty with my topic, and I was able to have some really good conversations with people that were interested, not just people that had to be there because it was the next topic in the session. So it was a lot of really engaged conversation. Now, I don't look at this as much as I did as a positive because of what the experience we just went through. I have a little bit of anxiety at big crowded rooms now. I have the concern of COVID, always behind me. This gives me a little bit of pause of this picture itself. And so, John, you and I have talked about this at length. What about you? What was your favorite thing about this, and what were some of the limitations associated with it too?
Yeah, Trevor, as I think back on my sort of poster session experience in the past, I think similarly, I'm more on the extroverted side. I would look at this as sort of enjoyment, but it was also difficult because as you're walking by, there'd always be this sort of side of me that cares about people, and I feel bad about the people that are just sort of sitting by their poster and like nobody's there. And so it's a little bit of an awkward situation and an awkward thing. But honestly, I think what was maybe the most difficult part about poster sessions as they existed pre-COVID was that you had your poster up for 2 hours and that was it. Like, it's done. And I think one of my bosses, my science operations officer, has probably a dozen poster tubes now that just sit there. Nobody sees them. There's no real way to do that. And so I think, maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but now these showcases provide an opportunity. These are going to live for a long, long while. There's an electronic format to them. It's not just what this will be a 1 hour session for your showcase. It's going to live through the duration of the week and even beyond that in the apps. You can go back and see it. So I think there's a lot more opportunities for exposure with this new paradigm. I was in Tulsa for the partially in conference, mostly virtual conference, and I'll honestly say the poster sessions at the time were a little bit clunky. I remember there were maybe 4 or 5 of us that went into a room and we had poster sessions, and it was like, honestly, it was easier for people to just sit on their laptops and not really get a lot of personal interaction, and that was a bummer. I wished that wasn't the case. And I'll say, basically, I think that the high level point we want to make here with the ad hoc committee is that we don't really know exactly how well this is going to go. We'll have to see, right? There's going to be pros, there's going to be cons, there's going to be some things that might be a little bit clunky as we kind of figure this out. But in some ways, the poster sessions aren't ideal either. So what we're trying to do here is give you a platform and a space to get creative. I think there's many reasons that have been talked about in some of the documentation we've shared, and even some of the brainstorming we're going to do tonight, to be able to link to things like, YouTube links, or to active web pages, to even include like radar loops or satellite loops instead of just a stationary image. That is a really relatively easy thing, but it's super nice to do. And I think as well, for introverts and extroverts alike, it provides a really great opportunity to be able to get in and observe and see what other people are doing without necessarily having to engage or interact, or to engage just as much as you've done in the past through poster sessions, whether you're attending virtually or you're attending in person. So I'm super excited about this. I think the paradigm is changing. And the main thing that we want to do is make sure that everybody is getting the full experience. We were talking a little bit before this call. Some conferences are opting to make posters only in person, and that's fine. That's reasonable. It's probably more straightforward, to be honest, to do that. But because the cost is the same for virtual versus in-person attendees, we want everybody to be able to be involved and interactive with the entire process. And so certainly excited about some of the upside. I'd ask you to just bear with us and continue to ask questions, because I'd say for the ad hoc committee, we're forming a picture of what this is going to look like, but there's still some pieces and parts that maybe we haven't thought of. And so tonight we'll just encourage you to go with us on this journey, get creative, explore, so we can maybe not have it perfect this year, but by next year and the years after that, we can build out what we think can be a really, really effective and helpful sort of companion to the oral presentations, which have previously been sort of the most highly sought after part of the conference.
Right. Thanks, John. So really what we were trying to capture overall is what worked with the old poster design, and then incorporate the virtual aspect of it at the same time. So that might have a subtle change to how we actually do posters, but more or less you'd still be walking into a main room and you would be sitting at a table now instead of sitting at a poster. We'll get to those things. I want to advance just a little bit further and cover some of these other topics. So we already talked a little bit about, these are essentially the same thing, virtual posters, but now you're in person. So what were your options before? You could just make a virtualization of your in-person poster. That involved uploading a PDF, a JPEG, PNG, something along those lines. There was a 10 megabyte limit with that. That's not changing. That's the same limitations, I believe. Correct? Is that correct, Nicole? This is pretty much the same. So your requirement for uploading will be before the annual meeting. There'll be a date. You'll be contacted by Factor 110 about what those rules are. So you'll have an option of uploading PDF. You'll also have an option of generating a short video, just like last year, where you can do a summation of your poster presentation, 5-minute maximum time limit. And once you have that up there and uploaded in the app, whether you're there or you're not there, people would have an option of understanding what your topic is. But there will be sessions in which you can physically be there that are dedicated for you as the author to be there and to interact with the presentation or audience. That doesn't have, there's going to be an element that people virtually are going to be doing that through the app to get to these different showcase spots, but there are also going to be people in person that are going to be interacting with those same people. So they need to have a place that you can do both. And that's really what we're designing here. But remember that last year and the year before that, you could have your own virtual conference outside of the app. At that time, you could put a link to your session and to your Google Meet or whatever it was. You could put that in the app itself and share it with people. You could put a QR code that links people to that. You could even physically put that on your poster and say, meet me over here. And we're good if you want to chat further about this. So one thing I really like about that is it's not really just designed for extroverts for you to go in there and then have to jump in there and commit to a social contract, essentially, when you walked in there. You can decide to go into the session. That's something, it's essentially more like going into a virtual room of talking about the topic. And so there's going to be an element of that too, where you physically decide, I want to know more than just this little video, so I want to jump into the session. So how do you do that with the people in person? Going further, whoops, wrong direction. So how do we do this hybrid? We talked a little bit about it, but there's a couple examples just in the graphics that I was able to find. There was kind of what we were talking about. If you had somebody sitting at a table there, is everyone just watching the screen behind them, or is there people that are looking over their shoulder, or people that are waiting to be talked to? What would that really look like? Or is it a combination of both? The answer is probably that. You're going to have people that are wanting to talk to you because they see you on the other side of the room. You're probably going to have other people that are wanting to talk to you about your session. There are people virtually that are logging into your session that want to talk to you about what your topic is, but you've got your attention in 4 different places and you're not really sure how to prioritize that. Totally legitimate fear. Not really that different than regular posters where you had somebody you were talking to and then somebody over here clearly wants your attention and they're waiting their turn. So there's going to be a little bit of awkwardness that probably comes back, just like it was before, where I don't have time to talk to everyone at the exact same time, but they can hear my answers. So some of these things that we know right off the bat that you should consider when you create your showcase is that you do have a hybrid audience. So keep them both in mind. And it's not a small number of people. So right now, we looked at some of the responses. And if you haven't done this, if you have gotten your showcase and haven't responded to our survey, please do, because it gives us more information about what we can plan logistically. But of the survey responses we've had up to this point, at least 1/3 of those people have indicated they don't know, or they do know, that they're going to be attending virtually. So you do have a considerable audience, potentially over 100 people that are going to want to be there and are going to want to interact with you. So you need to build that into your showcase to have the full experience of the maximum amount of potential audience. So having said that, we will have many more people in person than we did last year. So we had to be able to do both at the same time, fit people into a room, just like a poster session, give them space, but then also give them the ability to kind of be creative with that space. We can't do it with posters, and the reason we can't do it with posters is because the only way to do that is to completely alienate everybody else that's virtually. They would not have access to it. There's no way to do that. So until we get to that point where we decide that, sorry, virtually you're screwed, we're not willing to do that. And so we are trying to come up with a solution this year that allows them to be there. So they will be virtual, but we are designing the in-person sessions to leverage the benefits of a traditional poster session. We envision you walk into a room, you see all of the people you meant to see, you see that topic and it's at that table and you want to go there and you find it. We're even talking about splitting up the room, which John will talk about a little bit later, about basing that off of categories and topics as well. So when you get your position, when you get your assignment for day and time, you know that you're at this table and that's what you got to go find to set up your showcase. And Jared actually just attended an ESRI conference, I believe, in Southern California recently. And this picture came from him and he just posted it on his Facebook. And I love that he did it because it's kind of capturing exactly what we're trying to do. So you, as an audience member, bring your own personal device ready to interact, because you might want to just jump into their Google Meet session or your Zoom or whatever they host. You might want to just sit down and be part of that. Maybe what they're showing you is some sort of GIS tool, and really the only way to test it and test drive it is to log on yourself and do that. Well, you have the Wi-Fi of the hotel. So you could sit down with that author and have a how-to, or even a short course, if you will, about how to do that. So you would have an ability to collaborate. You're just not standing with a poster board to do it. You're sitting at a table with your device to do it. So hopefully that answers some questions about what this looks like in theory. You know, when you come into the room, several tables, all of the authors are there. You might even want to have handouts of your poster that you uploaded and say that here you go, check this out. You could even have little tabletop stands on there that would have a small version of a poster, should you want to, with a QR code for how to join your session. You can enable your audience to interact with you however you decide. But the point is that you should be thinking of creating a space for the hybrid audience to be able to, or the virtual audience to be able to interact with you at the same time. And we'll talk about some, tips and tricks on how to be able to do that based off what we know about the conference. But in the end, dang, that was supposed to be my favorite element of it. The surprise is gone. So it pops up too fast, my bad. Well, this is essentially what the conference room looked like. This is not our conference from last year, but this is the conference room, generally what we did. We had a bunch of big circular tables. They had 6 to 8 chairs per, and you had in a big conference room. So imagine you as the author of the showcase, you get a table. So do you want to have a tablecloth on your table? Do you want to have signage on your table? Do you want to have your several different seats available, QR codes available on there, handouts, trifolds? You essentially can create your little booth, if you want, of your topic. And if people can come by, see all the things that you have to offer. If you want to throw candy on there, I have posters of people that provided gum. So you go wild with what you want to do with your space. But that's the point, is that before, in the in-person conferences, you had a poster board and you had push pins. That's what the conference gave you. And you explored that to the maximum you had. So now we're giving you a table to explore to the maximum that you have, knowing that you should be trying to engage your virtual audience as much as possible. So the effect here was that Jared and his colleague was sitting down and interacting much like they would if in theory how we envisioned this to go. They would sit down and go, hey, let me show you this. Let's get this person involved. And hey, somebody joined our Google Meet here and they wanted to be part of that. So both are on their machines to interact with the same 3 people, and they're able to do that just fairly seamlessly. As seamlessly as possible, that is. So that's kind of where we are at. I'm going to finish this little presentation with, sorry, 2 different screens here, with kind of the considerations. This is not everything. This is just kind of the main points that we know up to this point. And we'll start talking about the app. But what we do know is that there's going to be 3 sessions for posters showcases. There's going to be 2 on Tuesday, 1 on Wednesday. Each is 1 hour long. There's going to be the same virtual requirements from last year, as you saw on our earlier slide. We will provide you the table, several chairs, and access to the conference Wi-Fi. What you do with that is up to you. The tables will not have dedicated power. That was something that we tried to get, but that's massively expensive at this point. So that's why we kept them only to 1 hour, is because if you're working on battery power, you're not going to be able to probably go for too much longer than that. But we would highly suggest that you do bring personal batteries, anything that you can do to extend that life should you need to. We are all going to be on our phones and personal devices anyway through that experience. So we're thinking of leveraging that in this space. So unfortunately, we won't have dedicated power, but your presentation should only be about an hour. Hopefully that's enough. Encouraging in-person attendees also to bring their personal devices. So that's something we're definitely going to message. When you're coming to these poster sessions, make sure you're bringing something that you can interact virtually as well. What if you do get a question from somebody from the that's not attending in person and that you can't hear it because you're not part of that? So try your best to engage with the Google Meets and the Zooms that are taking place, even if that just means sitting down and logging in. And because you can still have your conversation with that person in person, but you can also include the virtual attendees as well. Okay, John, I meant to pepper you in a lot more than that, but is there anything from that I didn't cover that you wanted to cover before we start taking a tour of the app?
No, Trevor, I think that was good overall. A couple additional things that I'd like to just include. I think it's reasonable that you could even just use your cell phone to participate. I mean, the Whova app is also cell phone based, and so at the very least, you could be doing that. There was a question in some of the survey feedback about handouts, things like that. Trevor mentioned it, but I'd just like to emphasize, if you really want to still do a poster, like you still could do that. There's nothing keeping you from printing out your 4-foot by 3-foot PDF and setting it on the table in front of you. I think personally for me, I'm probably going to go the route of having maybe 4 or 5 slides, and then I will be able to print those out and have them sitting on the table so that people can kind of follow along. I think those are reasonable things and considerations. I think headphones are going to be a good idea. Bandwidth is one of the things that we're going to seek to optimize, and so it may be a little bit before you know exactly which showcase session you're going to be assigned to. We're going to work to do that to kind of optimize the virtual versus in-person component of it all. And then one other thing to just sort of dangle as you're preparing for this, we've been talking about some gamification. In the past, there's been maybe a competition for the coolest picture, right, in the app. I think we're going to be looking into what we're going to call a showcase showdown, calling out our friends at The Price is Right, for an opportunity to vote on who is the most creative with this, who explored the space most effectively, who really knocked it out of the park. And so if you're competitive like I am, if that's something you need to be able to say, hey, I'm going to put everything I got into this, do it. Let's have fun. And it's going to be a really fun learning opportunity from my standpoint, not just for the content that you're presenting, but the ways in which you present it. I think it's going to be really fun to see what everybody does with that. Totally understand maybe some of the concerns. The angst change is hard. It's different. It's new. There's some uncertainty, but I really do think that it's going to be a really awesome opportunity. Trevor, is there anything else, or do you just want to transition to the next slide, which I believe is sort of the mock-up for what the room is going to look like?
Go ahead.
Okay. So for the visual learners out there, this is sort of a mock-up of what it might look like when you're walking into a showcase session. So again, there's going to be 3 sessions, 2 Tuesday, 1 Wednesday, and there's going to be approximately 54 tables in the conference room, okay? And so say, for example, we have 52 in-person showcases for this. That might be a little bit high, but what we're going to do over the next several weeks is work to categorize those showcases and then align them throughout the room so that it's pretty intuitive where you're going to go. You're going to have access to this document of the schematic in the Whova app. It's also going to be displayed up on the screen at the very front of the conference room. So when you walk in, you can either say, oh, I want to go and check out the fire and drop stuff, and I know where those are, and I'm going to go check those out. That's what I'm interested in, similar to maybe the ways that posters were in the past. Or you can go into your Whova app, ideally beforehand, and when you click on a poster or a showcase in the Whova app, it's going to have the number of the table where it's going to be. So you're going to be able to bop around. It will be 1 showcase per table. So you're going to have the entire table to yourself. And then there's also going to be probably in each showcase a portion of virtual showcases that are occurring simultaneously. For those, we don't think it's necessary to have an entire table. There will be space likely towards the back of the room where people can sit on their own devices and be able to engage with the virtual presenters just as well. Obviously, the number of categories, the number of showcases in each category, the room allocation might look a little bit different, but this is sort of generally what we're going to be looking at this point. I did just see a question come in regarding, can we sit in for all 3 showcases? Is it just going to be one? You're going to be assigned one showcase. But the very nice thing about these that are being in Whova, they're going to live for the entirety of the conference. And so you're still going to be able to interact and comment and chat within Whova. I think we're going to keep it just to one showcase session assigned so that you don't have to necessarily be manning a Google Meet or something like that for 3 hours throughout the conference. That's probably too much. But you certainly are able to continue to engage throughout the conference, whether during a showcase session or not.
Hey, John,
So again, yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
So that brings up a good point. Francis' question brings up a great point. Is that yes, you'll have the 1 hour. Think of it as your office hours for that that whole 3-4 days that you're there. That you will be guaranteed available to the audience. However, through the app, and this happened several times in the previous 2 years, is people will come to your poster throughout the whole conference, and they'll say, "Great, hey, is there an opportunity for us to chat or whatever sometime during the conference?" And yes, absolutely set those up. You could set those up as much as you want. So effectively, your poster session is the entire conference in theory, but your opportunity to be there and guaranteed to be there for your audience, the expectation is that you'll be there, is during that 1 hour, and you'll have the one session for that.
Another really good question just came in. It's talking about if you're an in-person showcase presenter, are you going to be responsible for engaging with the in-person and virtual attendees? The short answer is yes. The longer answer is that is one of the most difficult aspects of this hybrid showcase that we are very mindful of. We're not totally sure how that's going to work. As Trevor alluded to, there's maybe going to be some awkwardness to it. One of the things that we are proposing as sort of a way around this, perhaps, is in the past with a poster session, if you've had co-authors that haven't been able to attend the meeting, they have no opportunity to engage. But in this forum with the Whova app, say you set up a Google Meet or a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or whatever, it is now possible that you could have a co-author who's not attending the annual meeting sitting in that Google Meet, that Zoom, that Microsoft Teams to be able to, one, engage with those virtual attendees, which is a really good idea, but also to perhaps provide some backup, technical backup in the event that, say, your computer dies or something like that goes wrong. Not necessary to do that, but certainly a possibility that, again, is now opened up because of this hybrid environment to have co-authors who are not paying, registration fees, not at the conference itself, but able to still engage and interact and foster, honestly, improved collaboration than even what we had previously through the in-person poster sessions a few years ago.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to follow up on that to say that I would highly encourage it, to be honest with you. That is something you did not have with previous posters, as John mentioned. So now you have that resource. What would you do with that resource? And if one of those things is to take care of the virtual audience and answer questions when you are not available and you're engaged with somebody else, it's a great idea that you didn't have before. So you and also, how many of us have wanted to have our co-author or co-authors on and answer questions because that was their level of expertise and you're kind of just representing? You have the opportunity for them to be engaged. The last two posters that I gave, that I did exactly that. I had people who were not meteorologists that I had partnered with. I invited them to the session and they answered the questions from their level, from their background and expertise. So they were able to physically be there. And that's a giant resource, in my opinion, that you can tap into to tag team a presentation. It does not have to be just you. Now, if it is just you, yes, maybe there will be some awkwardness where, hey, it might be something where you have just a slide up that says, hey, if I don't get to you right away, here's my poster, but I'll be with you just shortly. You can make that a chat. I'm not saying it's going to be completely seamless. You probably will have some, hold on, let me talk. Can you hold on just for a second type of situations. But that's truly what you had when you were in person too, when people were coming in at different times, at different points of your presentation, and you kind of had to go through it again with them once you answered the question over here. So those experiences shouldn't be wildly different. It will be a little bit of awkwardness with that, as John mentioned, but you certainly can mitigate that by bringing in co-authors, especially if your computer goes down, which is not a non-zero, or it's not a zero chance that that'll happen. So that would be good to be able to do. And if it does go down and you can't use it anymore, you still can talk to the people in person and your co-author can still present on their end. So it does provide you a backup in case that there's some failure there. John, what do you think about somebody just asked a question about what does the app do and allow? So why don't we get to that now, the tour of the app. Nicole, are you ready for that?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, let's do it. I'm going to stop presenting.
Okay, I'm going to turn off my camera while I present. Okay, so hi everybody, thanks for joining tonight. And as Trevor and John already alluded to, the conference app that we're going to be using is called Whova. If you are not familiar with our hybrid or virtual aspect of the NWA annual meeting, you can see their name right here. It's WHOVA, so everybody's on the same page. And if you have attended in the past 2 years, then you're pretty familiar with this app. And again, not much is changing as far as your instructions. If you presented in 2020 or 2021, the technical instructions are pretty much the same. So within the next week, all showcase presenters are going to be receiving an email from our wonderful event management company. Their name is Factor 110. And Matthew Holloway is going to be the contact person at Factor 110. So if you see his emails pop up, or any emails from Whova, those will be important to read because they will deal with your showcase instructions. So again, within about a week, you'll receive an email that is very similar to this one. And so this is just a test one that we set up so we can show you today. But you'll see that it's going to invite you to set up your showcase space. The email that you also receive will, oh, I'm on the wrong email. Hang on just 1 second. I need to get the right one. Here we go. Sorry about that. Here's the right one. So you'll see one that's very similar to this. So in this email, you'll also receive instructions about the specs. And then it will have this unique link for you to upload your showcase information. The great thing about this link in this email is that it never expires. So you can always go in there and edit things. So if you have some things ready, but not others, you can revisit your poster, your showcase space, and keep uploading or editing information as you need. So once you click on this Edit Showcase Info, you'll be taken to this page, very similar to this. And it's going to ask you for some showcase information. You don't have to enter your phone number or website or address, and your description or abstract will already be there for you. So really the important things are going to be down here. You can add a cover photo that will help kind of show off your showcase when we're putting it in the agenda. And so if you want to just upload a PDF of your poster here, if you want to upload one of your slides in your slide presentation, whatever you want, you have this option to add an image for a cover photo. You can also upload an additional up to 50 photos if you want. Note that the file size limit is 10 megabytes right there. But it does give you a lot of room to upload additional graphics. If you want to upload a separate QR code, you have a lot of space to play here with images that you can upload to your space. In our showcase presentation spot, you have an option, and you can do all of these if you want. First, you can add a recorded video if you'd like, and we ask that it be at least no more than 5 minutes. And you can also upload PDFs, so a PDF of your poster, just like a traditional poster that you would print off. And again, there is a 10 megabyte file size limit with those PDFs. And if you want to add your live presentation, here's where you're going to input your link. So you would need to create a Google Meet link or a Zoom link on your own, and then you'll input it in this space. And here is where you can add additional presenters. So if you have co-authors that you want to join on the space, you can do so right here. So let's take a tour of what this will actually look like once you fill it out. And just a caveat here, we don't have 2022 set up yet. So we're going to take a little tour of last year's 2021, but it's going to look very similar. So here is the home page of the event app. And under the agenda, we'll have a section called Showcases. Once you click on Showcases, you're going to be able to see all of the showcases that you can go visit. And I'll just show a couple examples here. I'm going to pick on Jared since he's on the call, and he's also right here in front of me. But let's go look at Jared's poster space.
Good day, everyone. My name is Jared. I'm warning coordination meteorologist here at the National Weather Service in Cheyenne.
So you can see that Jared chose to upload a video. And again, those instructions will be provided to you by Factor 110 in that email. So they'll ask you for a video file or a YouTube link, and they will take care of importing it for you. So Jared did a video up here. He also did a live stream. So he imported probably a Google Meet link and had a specific time. So when you get your showcase time, you'll be able to put in your Google Meet or Zoom link, and it will show that you're going to be live at your specific time during your showcase. You can read his abstract here, and then he also uploaded a PDF of his poster. So you can click on that, blow it up. If you want to, you can add things like QR codes and different links, make it interactive, like Trevor and John were discussing. He uploaded a photo here. And then we can see that the presenter is Jared. You can send him a message in the app. You can view his profile. And then note over here on the right-hand side, there's a chat. And again, the awesome thing about Whova is that these posters, these showcases, are going to live in the app for 6 months after the meeting ends. So even if you're, done with the meeting, you can still come back and continue the conversation or set up meetings with people within the app here. It's still going to work for you for up to 6 months afterwards. So we can see that attendees have come in and they've asked questions or they've commented, and then Jared's been able to go in and answer those. And that can be done at any time. And then let's go look at an example of somebody who decided not to do a video, and that's also okay. So Dan Bikos here decided not to do a video presentation. He just uploaded a PDF of his poster. And he also has a link here that you can click on to go to the site that he references, and quite a few sites in here. So again, if you don't want to do a video, that's okay. You can just upload a traditional poster here and discuss it at your table.
Looks like he also did a GoToMeeting in the chat there. He posted
Yes,
where he
thank
posted
you.
it.
Yep, so he was promoting his live session here during poster session A last year. So that's a very high level of what the app is going to look like on the presenter and attendee side. And again, you'll receive your very detailed instructions from Factor 110 within the week. So you'll have more information and access to your space so that you can start creating it how you wish.
Okie dokie. Was there anything else to show, Nicole?
Nope, that was it. I wanted to keep it short.
Okay, fantastic. This is another thing I'm very glad to have seen, because in the previous couple of years, you didn't really get access to the app ahead. Well, you did a little bit, but you didn't get like a month and a half, basically, of kind of seeing the interface and what to do with it, how it looks. And I can tell you the first year we did this, it was just titles. The second year that we did this, now we have the actual spaces there. You see how some people use their poster itself as the title PNG of the thumbnail. Some other people just put the title on there. So think about, now that you see how the space looks, think about how you would design it so people would want to click on it. So if you, not to disparage anyone else's poster there, but if you do your entire poster as that, it's going to be very difficult to read. You're not going to really be able to see the title necessarily. So maybe you want to put your screaming message on there. And I just chatted a YouTube link to Mike Morrison's science poster series that if you haven't seen it before, it's actually an extremely useful resource on how to minimize your poster so that it does have your screaming message so that people come to your table and come to your session. So maybe if you take a look at that, you can see how there are some ways to manipulate color, how to make certain words bigger than others to really bring people into your session. And that's what you're doing here. It's not just walking in, remember, walking right by and then engaging. You're deciding to level up into the session as a virtual presenter. You're seeing, here's my title. I want to click on that. Then here's a video or a poster itself. I want to learn more. Now I want to engage, so I click on that. So there's like 3 levels of clicking before you finally get to the actual poster interaction part. Now, when you're in person, that's different. You might just walk right on in and see this title there, and you see that poster and that table, and it's got all these things on it. It's got the bubble gum that I want, so I'm going to go straight to that one, and I'm going to go engage with them and see what their poster is all about. Now, that's a completely different option. You know, that's more like the traditional poster series. So when you're, I really like Leslie's there. It's a picture of him. So there you go. Fantastic. I know that person. I'm going to go talk to him. And so that is pretty effective if you think about it. You know, most people are going to be approaching people that they know in these, especially at the beginning. So so really think about that. What message are you sending when it comes to promoting your own poster and getting people to come to it?
And if I could jump in here really quickly, some people have been asking about the deadline. So the deadline, Factor 110 will communicate that to you, but it will likely be about a week before the annual meeting begins. Now, if you need an extension, Factor 110 is very good about working with you if that is needed. But just keep in mind, if you don't have anything in there by the time the app goes live, then people aren't going to see anything until you add it. So again, look for more instructions from Factor 110 next within the week.
All right. Well, so I'm hoping that we answered most of your questions that you may have had coming into this, but we wanted, before we go into our breakouts and start talking about generating them, and just to review, if you joined late, what we're going to do after we have a little bit of Q&A here with some of your questions for us that everyone needs to know the answer to, we are going to break out into whether or not you plan on attending in person or you plan on attending virtually. And you're going to have some members of the ad hoc team that are going to be there, that are going to moderate that discussion and really get into what are some of the tools you could use, brainstorming with you on some tips or tricks maybe they're thinking about as they come to be part of this discussion and know what we're working with, to give you some recommendations. We're not going to build your conference or your showcase for you, but maybe we can help you get started. Maybe we can introduce you to a resource or a tool, or if you have a question about somebody had actually asked about how do you generate a QR code. Great question for the breakouts, that we can show you some of the resources that we've seen, some of those free things, some of those that require a little bit of investment. Whatever it is that you would like your questions to be about the particulars of your showcase, we can do it. Even if you're like, I'm not sure how to do this other than a traditional poster, but here's my topic, what would you do? That's a great question. And if you had ideas from the last 2 years of doing virtual posters and you're like, this really worked for me, please share that. That's absolutely what we want you to do, is tell us what worked for you. But before we do that, before we break out, I did want to open it up for anyone to ask a question. And remember that we have our program chairs, we have HQ, we have the ad hoc team, we have everybody here that would be able to answer your question here to answer it. So does anybody have a burning question in their mind that they'd like to ask? Let's start with, let's go with Alex.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is completely unrelated, but I was wondering, since I'm a college student, so I have to go ask the people for money to help sponsor my trip up. Are presenters supposed to also pay the attendance fee, or is that not something that we have to worry about?
Do you mean registration?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody that will be attending, including presenters, will be expected to present.
Okay.
But if you're a student, I believe there's a discounted rate. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. I just wanted to, know if I should put that in the forms. Thanks.
No problem. Jonathan, I think, next.
Yeah, hi everyone. My primary concern is the lack of participation and involvement during the event in these virtual poster formats. It's not just been NWA, it's been AMS and other platforms. So what can you do to try to promote this as much as possible to really encourage the maximum involvement? Thank you.
I'd like to pick on our ad hoc team a little bit. How did you guys do that? How did you get your name out there? How did you promote your posters? Jared, if you just wanted to answer out loud for everyone to hear.
As far as just promoting, you can, if you have a decent social media presence, if you're on Twitter, on Facebook, it seems like the weather community seems to be very much gravitated towards Twitter. So, or you can just do the hashtag weather Twitter, and then you can promote your stuff that way, either through a Google Meet if you're planning on doing that, or if you have some special handouts, or you can even just tweet an image of your QR code. And then people can virtually find your slides or a handout or a brochure that you might have too. And then where to potentially find you at what table number or which section when you're at the conference. And then I think even through the Wahoo app too, you can promote there as well. So a couple different options, both virtually and then also within the app itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that in my experience too, the interacting in the app is the best way to get traffic to you in the app. So that could be making several posts and sessions that say I have this poster and doing a little bit of self-advertisement. A lot of it comes with the interface that you just saw. Like, how do I make sure that my graphic is engaging enough that people, and my title is screaming enough that people are going to click on it and come to it, right? So it really comes down to your initial presentation in the app and how you sell it in the app itself, because that's where a lot of our virtual traffic will be. Now, when you're in person, most likely you're doing that like, hey, I have this poster, come to it, please. You might be interested in this. You still can do that. So you have that advantage in person, if you're going to be in person, to be able to, have that dialogue verbally. But if you're not, and you're going to be through the app, I would 100%, continue to advertise it in the options that are there in the app. Does that answer your question, Jonathan? Hopefully.
Oh yeah, that gives us some good guidance on how to get our name out there, so to speak.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Thanks.
Trevor,
Thanks for your question.
if I can jump in, I just wanted to say something from Dave and I. When we've been working on the schedule along with Janice and Nicole, we've been trying to be very cognizant of not programming things at the same time. So for like the showcase timeframes, there's nothing else happening. It's not, some conferences you have multiple things occurring at the same time, and so people have to choose. But in this space, the showcase times are on their own. So they stand on their own. So people will be milling about, people will be around. There's nothing else pulling their attention unless they want it to go somewhere else. So that, in terms of the NWA programming, we've done that purposefully. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carrie. I didn't think of that either. Yeah, there's literally nothing else going on. So you have the full attention as you can give it across 50, 60 posters, just like a poster session before, so that will be there as well. A couple more questions. I think it's Jeffrey Manikin. You want to ask yours?
Yeah. Thanks, Trevor. Maybe more of comment than question. So I'm very respectful of the process here. The challenges that you face with trying to work here in a hybrid world are immense. And again, I appreciate the efforts here. They're being made to find solutions to go forward, like with these showcases. What worries me is where I think this breaks down is this idea of trying to communicate with people online and at the table with you simultaneously. I can just see where you're chatting with someone online, someone comes to sit at your table. Well, you still have to finish up a couple questions online, and they've got an hour to get to potentially 50 different places. They're going to just walk on to the next poster. And I get that you can have your co-authors help, but my co-authors may have showcases at the same time. I don't know. I mean, the agenda we're still waiting on. So that's I think what worries me the most. And I know there's no answers to this, but again, trying to communicate to the remote audience and the in-person audience simultaneously seems like a pretty heavy lift.
I totally
I know there's no
understand.
easy answers. I get that.
No, there's not. The truth is that we haven't come up with this will solve that, and that's the solution. But I will say that some of the things you said, if some of your co-authors are presenting at the same time, reach out to us, Carrie and Dave. Maybe we could finagle that so that that's not the case. But one of the things that I would think of with that is I would definitely leverage the co-author thing because that enables you to be able to kind of do two things at once. The other thing too is we truly don't know whether or not it will be a challenge, because if you have 100 people that are virtual and they're going to 50 different posters all at one time, maybe it will. Maybe you'll have 8 of them at once. Great, that's a good problem to have probably. But I think if it were me in that situation, I got 8 people sitting on my session and 1 person waiting to talk to me, I would be like, hey, you want to join us in this Google Meet because you can hear everything that I'm saying. So jump into our Meet plugin. It'd probably be better than me rehashing it, and it might be on this discussion for the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So you can either go see another poster if you want, or come down and be a part of this, because we're really getting into something here. So it's not a solution, but I think it's potentially a way to mitigate that issue. And maybe it will go well. Who knows? Maybe if people come prepared and they sit down knowing that they might have to jump into a virtual session, will it be kind of weird? You're sitting down on a computer with the person sitting next to you? Sure. Yeah. But you could have a pretty good discussion going on or a demonstration, and that might be pretty good. So yeah, I totally empathize with you that there's going to take some creativity there and some people management in order to, but I think if everyone's on the same page and understanding that, maybe it won't be as big of a burden as we think it might be.
Thank you.
I keep muting myself when I'm about to talk. Great question there, Jeff. I appreciate that. I think, Janice, did you have a question, or did it get addressed over here on the right?
I didn't have a question. I had a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
And it's addressing some of the concerns that people have had about promoting these. And one of the reasons that the showcase team was created was because we identified some of those issues last year at the meeting, that we thought we had it all figured out and have promoted it, but a lot of people didn't understand how some of the aspects were going to work. So this team is working really hard. And I think some of the things like grouping similar topics in the room, we'll have table numbers, so you'll know what your table number is, so it'll be easier for people to find you. And just the fact that this team is doing so much work, I think we'll be able to do a better job promoting this year. And I know they're planning to give some instructions before the first few showcases start to help people, guide people through the process. So yes, I think we still have a lot to see how it all works. But from what I've seen from this team, they're really looking at what could go right, what could go wrong. And I think we're already off to a better start this year. So we will learn a lot through this year. So we will be asking for input in the end, but I think we're going to get a lot more promotion, and there's some things that we can do with the area in the app that promotes the different showcase sessions. We're looking at ways to better help you promote your presentation, and just keep in mind you have all week and beyond to connect with people. So if you do have a case where somebody can't connect with you during that 1 hour, please connect with them through the messaging and set up another time to connect with them. But a lot to learn, but I think we're off to a really good start this year, thanks to this team.
Yeah, thank you, Janice. And I would like to echo that some of the concerns that are brought up, and there isn't this is going to solve that 100% situation like the virtual and in-person interaction is a challenge. But one of the things that I am excited about is actually I'm looking forward to seeing what people are going to do now they have this table, especially all of you that now see what this is going to be, and know what space you have. Because I imagine some people are going to have some really amazing things that they put together with having a table versus having a poster. And so not being limited to just the paper poster part, I'm really kind of curious to see what you guys come up with. And that's the part that's really exciting to me. We're going to try our best to focus on intuitive, that this is when you walk in, this is an intuitive experience that isn't that painful, and that the authors are using all of the resources to do the best possible presentation. And it's not limited by the format that we're doing, which is my biggest criticism of posters in the past, is that the design of them limits what you actually can do with showing your science. Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised, but I'll ask one more time if there's any questions that haven't been answered before we go into the breakout sessions. We have another hour left. Okay.
While we're reading, Trevor, I just want to reiterate one last thing just to kind of put a ribbon on all this stuff. The ad hoc committee is super committed to the in-person portion of these showcase sessions. I think historically those in-person, face-to-face interactions are an invaluable part of this, and we want to preserve that. We're trying to balance preserving that while not excluding the virtual attendees. And so that's the rub. That's a difficult thing. We're acknowledging that it's not necessarily straightforward. We're going to do the best that we can to do that. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how this all goes. We appreciate your patience in the midst of this. If you guys have questions over the course of the next month, let us know, reach out. There's been documentation that's gone out. I have a written document that's going to go over the showcase guidelines that we sort of talked about that you're going to be able to use as you're going through and putting together your showcase. So we'll have all this ready for you, but feel free to ask questions, make suggestions, etc. along the way. The ad hoc committee has been fantastic. Definitely want to thank everybody for their involvement in the process. But the work is yet to be done, and we're going to continue to evolve and just sort of try to improve this and make it as Trevor said, intuitive as possible for all the attendees that are going to be in participation.
Yep, absolutely. That's the goal. So hopefully we can do that. And so for the next hour here, you're not committed to staying the whole hour. If you want to drop off and all your questions are answered and think you know how to start, go ahead. But what we wanted to offer was an ability to, collaborate with your peers and start to brainstorm on how to do that with people who have done this in the previous couple of years. John actually was on one of the guinea pigs for trying to do this last year with almost nobody in person to actually interact with this poster. So it was a little bit of a different challenge. So we'll have the opposite issue this time. But Nicole, if you want to go ahead and spin up the breakouts, how this part's going to work, since we've got about, looks like 26 people on the call. So what we're going to do here is just simply chat, whether or not you're attending in person or virtually. And when you do that, we will assign you to the appropriate room to get your questions answered. And so for the next couple minutes here, just go ahead and do that. Let us know whether you plan on attending in person or virtually, and then we'll give you access to the breakout room. And those folks will be able to answer your questions. You'll have at least 2, if not 3, people in there leading that discussion with you guys. And so I have here Pat and Melissa in the virtual presenters room, and then Jared, Brandon, and John that are in the in-person element, or in that breakout room. And then here in the main room, we're also going to be hanging around myself, Nicole, and I think Dave, if Carrie had already dropped off, to answer any questions that you might have just about the annual meeting or anything along those lines. If you have any questions that come to you about how this process is going to work during the time you're in your breakout, just simply come back to this room and ask us. The point of those rooms is mainly to start brainstorming your sessions. So if you have questions about the function of it or the annual meeting design or anything along those lines, come back here and just simply ask us those questions. We'll be happy to answer them for you. Okay, I don't have like any Jeopardy music to play while we shuffle people to their appropriate rooms, but hopefully I'm not going to sing it either.
I think we need some Price is Right music. Some da da da,
oh, right.
Da, 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 da.
Okie dokie. Right, Nicole, Janice, do you guys need any help with assigning people, or are you guys doing it? You've gotten it handled.
I can't figure out how to do it.
Okay.
Just a heads up, even if you have co-hosts, only one person can control. So if one person's in there doing the breakout groups, no one else can touch it. So unfortunately, I think that means Nicole's doing it all. Something we've run into with FAIR, just FYI.
Thank you for that. Giving us some tips on how to do this. We thought we tested it all out in theory.
I have all the tips on Google Meet. That's what we use for FAIR. So I know all of the oddities of it.
Oh, fantastic.
Guess you can say that that's not really fair to do that.
Ha ha ha. Very funny, Jared. Very, very funny.
Nicole, you're muted. Are you trying to talk?
Trevor, could you help me by just calling out what you see in the chat, and I'll type in names. I can't see the
Sure.
chat in the
Quick
breakout.
thing. For what it's worth, it looks like every single person has typed in person.
Oh,
Right now.
okay.
So it's possible we don't need to do a breakout room.
Okay, so no one is virtual.
Can we
Nobody's
just
typed
do
virtual.
Can we just do the hand raise function to see if anybody's virtual?
Yeah.
Certainly can call that audible. I don't see why not.
Just observing everybody's in person, so maybe we can, limit some of the.
Yeah, that would make it easier. But do we know anybody that's virtual at all? I'm not seeing a chat. I'm not seeing an unmute. Are there people in the breakouts now? Did you already assign some?
I did, so I could end them and we could just all keep
Okay,
in
yeah.
here.
That works.
So let me.
Sorry about that, Nicole. I just was thinking,
That's
hey, we
okay.
don't have any virtual attendees, so let's.
I guess the virtual attendees will be watching the recorded presentation, right?
preferring the virtual activities. Yes.
To be completely honest, that element is a little bit simpler. So
the introverts potentially, right?
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, the virtual the virtual edition of Showcases is going to be way more straightforward logistically than in person.
That's true. Your showcase isn't a table; it's your entire home and in your office. So that makes it pretty easy to logistically handle.
Okay, I think we're all here. Ashton, are you here? And Wen Meng?
Yep,
Just
I'm
want to
here.
be sure you're not hanging out in a room. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So sorry about that. Those that we assigned, we just realized everybody here is going to be in person, so there's no need to do a breakout. So that's how you do breakouts. If you have never done one before, you just got thrown into one. Now you can come back. But we can use this room to do basically everything. We'll talk about the in-person element now that we have our whole ad hoc team. So this might actually work out great for all of you that are here in person. So I'm kind of envisioning that we do something very similar to what we did with our webinar. By the way, there is a webinar that talks about some of these tools that we're going to talk about today that is on the YouTube page for NWA. So I'll share that link once we kind of get started. But I'm going to reintroduce our ad hoc team, starting with Jared. Jared Allen, the WCM at Cheyenne, Wyoming. You saw his example earlier on the app from last year, so he has a lot of tips and tricks with that. And a little bit of a specialist when it comes to ArcGIS story maps and AGOL maps as well. I've worked with him in previous offices too that really can see some of the cool stuff he's doing. We have Brandon Black. He's a forecaster at NWS Mobile. And he also has some extensive experience with that, using those tools as well. And he was actually one of the people that helped design this showcase workshop with me. Melissa Sizemore did a little bit with that. She was actually her first conference was born in the virtual space. So she has a completely different aspect of not really ever doing an in-person poster in the old way. And so her perspective is going to be really helpful there as well. And then Pat Highland, who, if you've ever seen Pat's presentations before, you would remember it if you did, because every title is super funny, super creative, and his presentations are just next level. So I'm really looking forward to them sharing some of their ideas with everybody. So with that, I probably want to turn it over to Pat. Would you be willing to kind of share some examples of what you did last year and some of the things you did outside of the box? Is he here?
He's showing that he's unmuted.
Yeah, I see he's unmuted, but I'm not seeing that he just freeze up. Yeah, his camera's off on my end, so I wonder if he's frozen up on his end. How about we make, well, I'll point it over to Jared.
Okay, yeah, let me get the quick screen share going here.
And as he's doing that too, feel free to chat your questions or even just jump in and interrupt. If you've got any questions, this is, like I said, a think tank type of thing, so it's kind of free flowing. So just jump in whenever you got a question.
Yeah, super informal. So if you got anything, just feel free to raise your hand or just jump in, no problem. So here's just an example from years past and how one, if you have access or if your organization has access to ArcGIS Online or AGOL, what's really cool about many of the different formats, and Brandon will show this in a little bit too, is that you can have ArcGIS story maps. There's so many different ways and versions of displaying, especially if you have geo-rich data, or say you have scientific data based off your research or whatever you want to show, whether it's got some social components as well, and how relationships or geographic relationships work together. Within this space of AGOL, there's a lot of different display capabilities. So say, I guess I made a couple cameos in the presentation for that big room and you're sitting at that table, you can potentially have this up on your screen. So you can even create a Google slide deck that you potentially even highlight that same 5-slide deck within the WOVA app too. And then so as part of Google Slides within AGOL, you can embed slides. So you can take people through a presentation if you wanted to. I'm just slowly scrolling with my mouse right now to highlight certain things. If you have a particular 1-pager or 2-pager that you can print out a lot and just keep on your table and have handouts, but then 2, you can embed that also within this type of dashboard setting. And then if you have a well built out prototype, or you have some other maps or some additional images, you can upload images. Or if you have direct specific GIS applications that you're looking to get feedback on, then you can highlight that in a real world scenario. And then if it's fully public, you've gone through the proper administrators within especially the Weather Service, then you can do a live demo with them of whoever may be either in the virtual space or the in-person space, and then you can highlight what your project might be about GIS wise or spatial dimensionality wise, and this is just an example of that capability. So if you have something built out GIS wise, or if you have a 1 or 2-pager, then you can highlight it within the actual application, or if you have a Google slide deck, the same one that you already created, so you don't have to recreate things, you can embed that directly within this type of application as well. So I would just recommend to get a GIS application done early. If you're already working on it, great. For you to potentially show it there, you can be logged into your own account within the Weather Service to show it, that's fine. But if you want other people to see it and test drive it themselves, make sure that it's potentially fully public. And that has to go through another little process for the administrative rights. But there's just a quick example of what you can do there to highlight any research that you have that might be geospatially rich in nature. And then I can kick it back over either to Trevor or if Brandon wants to highlight his components as well.
I'll just start off by asking you a couple of questions here, Jared.
Sure.
So how did you design your actual, I see that you did these obviously, right? So what was your experience actually giving the poster? So how did you interact with your people that came to it? And was that I think you had a Google Meet or something like that was set up. Did you have tons of tabs that were open, or did everything flow from the same source? Was the source shareable with everybody?
Sure. Yeah, great questions. So over the past couple of years, with us being completely virtual, I would initially just have this tab or maybe 1 or 2 other tabs ready to go and open. And then I would have some QR codes on my virtual poster that would then lead them back over to this online application. So any way that you can have either Google Slides, Google Documents, if you have access to those kind of maximize your shareability. And then through those components, you're able to really maximize your, essentially, I would almost say that sometimes people liked oral presentations, and then you're like, oh, I got a poster or I got a showcase. To be honest, I think if you have a showcase, you have a dedicated time and space at this upcoming conference, which is amazing. And you have a dedicated, there's nothing else going on. So a lot of people are going to come to your area. And if they see that they have a topic of interest that interests them, you can, the legs on a showcase, I think are better than an actual oral presentation, because orals, you actually do have some concurrent sessions where people have to pick and choose. And with all of the digital world that we live in, and with the digital materials that you create, whether it's the GIS application itself, but just the Google Slides, the Google Meet, the Google Docs, the range and sphere that you might be able to work with or captivate or network within is great. And that's one of the big things that I really love about the showcase endeavor, is that not only does it live forever in the app for the next year, essentially, it is you have a much larger reach within the app for those that explore it as well.
So let's do a little bit of a thought experiment here, Jared. This was your one last year, right? And in that case, it was fully virtual. But in this year, thinking ahead to, you now have a table and you're doing the same presentation. And what would you think would be the best way for people to interact with your poster? Would you have some options for like a handout that you would have at the table? Would you have QR codes so people could like access it from their personal device that's physically there? Would you have them looking over your shoulder? How would you walk them through your tool?
I would, just talking about actual physical things, I would probably have I would definitely have handouts, maybe like basically this right here. I'd have this printed out on a back and front. And what I don't have that I'm realizing on this right now, because it was initially designed this way, but I would actually put a QR code somewhere on this page, maybe on the bottom or at the top, so that if they see this, and then if there's the actual online components of either the slides or the application, then that QR code takes it to them. Or maybe you have a whole Google folder full of something that you might want to share with somebody that could link to a whole Google folder. So I definitely have this printed out. I would have a QR code on it. I might even potentially create maybe a brochure, so to speak. So whether you have, a back front, or maybe you have a trifold brochure that people can take, or you can have like little QR just cutouts themselves that people can take. I think that would be really cool to have like physically at the space. And then as people come by, you can show them these types of applications of what's going on, say, across the country. And you can, in this particular case, it's designed to give like basically a live demo, a live briefing that's always up to date. So then you can showcase all these different layers, and then you can highlight how they could potentially find this, or if they have new ideas, then you can incorporate it with your own application. And then ideally, I would probably have another co-author on the Google Meet, but I would try to be typing as well with those that are in the virtual space as well. But I would ideally have a second person for that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So you have a lot of stuff people can have hands-on, right? So they can actually physically interact with your tool right there in front of you. So not only are you showing them that, but they have access to being able to like click through it and everything. So I could envision like in your situation having like, here's an access to the tool itself. So would you like to sit down and log in and play with it? And then you can ask me questions, regarding it. I don't have to drive it. You can drive it yourself. Another thing a poster didn't give you the ability to do is like play with tools in development that are physically available for you. A lot of people might be able to have to write down or take a photo of a URL, and it could be very extensive. But in this space that we're talking about, you could create a QR code that takes them right to your tool, and then they are physically playing with it with real-time data, just like this, and asking, well, what does it do that? How do you do this? And you're actually the one they're interacting with your poster, and you're just guiding them through it rather than having to show them yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And then they can always link back to all the materials. And then if any additional comments or questions or ideas come up, then all your contact information is there, or the team's contact information is there. And then you can just, like I was saying, it's got more legs. And then you can just continue that awesome interaction that you briefly had, but then you can really integrate future ideas beyond just that one session.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is great stuff, Jared. Does anyone have any questions so far about anything that Jared's mentioned, or any thoughts, brainstorms? Anybody else on the ad hoc team that has some thoughts about any of this, what they're thinking about for this year and how they're going to do their showcases?
Yeah, Trevor, I'm loving some of the chat that's happening back and forth. It's cool to hear some of the different titles already. Just from my standpoint, I'm going to be doing a presentation. We did a Snow Squall Awareness Week campaign last November in Pennsylvania, the first of its kind. And as I think about the campaign, we have a lot of graphics right on social media, but probably the capstone of the entire thing is about a 30-second long video we got from a Tesla driver driving through a snow squall in Wisconsin. You can see a snowplow crash into a truck and flip, and there's like, it's just really powerful. And in the poster format, that wouldn't be accessible whatsoever. So I'm really excited to be able to show that and have people watch that, go to YouTube, be able to go to our website where we have all that content together, so that it even lives outside the Whova app. Right, and whether it's the Weather Service or it's people on TV or whatever, that's going to be a really, really fun thing to be able to do. The other thing is I've been working on something with the Weather Service, expanding the accessibility of student volunteer opportunities. So we created a story map. You go to this map and it's got all the Weather Service offices where they have a student volunteer program. You click on the location and then you get information about when the sessions are, et cetera, et cetera. That's another really cool thing where, as you said, Trevor, and as Jared said, I can actually have that as a QR code. People can go to it, scope it out, and start thinking, okay, if you know somebody who lives in Alabama, maybe they don't go to school there, but I'm going to reach out to that office and see if they have a student volunteer opportunities. And so I'm just really excited about the creativity that this allows. Also, as a sidebar, I think one of the biggest pains in the butt in my mind when creating a poster was figuring out how to spatially distribute things on like a 4-foot by 3-foot thing, how to make it look good. Now I can just totally avoid that by just going with classic PowerPoint slides. That's probably what I'm going to do with some links to QR codes and things like that. But that's sort of just my 2 cents. I'm thinking I'm probably going to have some stuff printed out just so people can play with and interact with, et cetera. Yeah, really enjoying the continued conversation and excited. I'm starting to get pumped up about the annual meeting. Usually it's not till like mid-August that I start getting my head on for it, but I think it's really neat to see what everybody's talking about. Good point, Sarah. I see your comment about, triggering trauma or things like that. Might be a good idea to include a disclaimer. Totally makes sense. Yep. It's not graphic whatsoever. It's more of just powerful for how quickly things change. And all of a sudden you're in a situation where this dude somehow successfully navigates his way through this chaos that's happening. Nobody died in that one, thankfully, but that's a really good point to add the disclaimer.
Yeah, I just noticed I was asking John if he had an example, because his title is The Adoption of Convective Allowing Ensemble Modeling System at the Bangladesh Meteorological Department. And I asked him, is that resource available? He linked me and I clicked on it's there. So that you just did a very small example of what we're talking about. The resources here, I can click on it and I can go through it myself. So if you're talking about people in person now, that tool, if we message, and we intend to message everybody, hey, come ready to interact with your poster with your personal device. So if you keep that in mind, this link, it's just a link. So that link could be digitized into a QR code. It could be something that's in your showcase in the app itself, that here's a resource, here's a list of things that you can interact with yourself. And then people could sit down and go through it with you. And rather than you steer the ship, they steer the ship and you're guiding them. I think that's kind of a different experience that you didn't get with posters before, where they get to interact with tools. They get to see the development of a new tool that otherwise other people wouldn't have. And so I love this.
I put QR codes on the most recent, paper in poster presentation I had. But yeah, it's different when people can just click on a link and then they bring up a page or a widget, and then they can start looking at the same thing that you're presenting.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that, like, if I saw that I could sit down and actually go through the case study with you, it's now the poster's interactive. That wasn't available before, And for me to actually go through, I'm going to pick on Melissa and Brandon now, because they developed options that were very much running through a story, right? And so now you get to be the storyteller while other people are going through the poster, which is kind of a very interesting way to do that. Which a poster, you had to kind of do this like top down, go here. You sometimes people had arrows. You're supposed to connect this dot to that dot, and this is the way I'm supposed to be telling it when I'm not there to narrate it itself. But I think especially with story maps, if either one of you guys want to share yours, I think that really makes that part intuitive, and you're essentially the narrator of your own story that they're walking through.
I think Brandon and I, our story maps are completely different from each other. Mine's more like a narrative, and his is more very GIS map based. So it's kind of two completely separate takes on the applicability of story maps as well.
Well, why don't you show yours?
I was gonna say I got mine up.
Well,
Okay, Brandon, you go ahead and go, and then I can show.
Me.
Dave, what's your question?
No, real quick, I have to jump off, but I just want to say, guys, this is great. I mean, honestly, this gives me a totally different perspective of what you guys are looking at. And I hope everyone else is kind of grasping the same concepts I am. Looking forward to this. If anyone does have any questions, I can try to answer them later on. Just let me know. I can reach through the NWA annual meeting. I can shoot us an email. But Trevor, great job with this. John, everyone else involved. Again, looking forward to it. And let's get this in action here in almost a month from now. Hard to believe.
Well, thank you for hopping on with us, Dave. And if either you or Nicole, would you mind sharing the email so everybody can save that to ask questions to you guys as program chairs?
You'll put it in the chat. There you go. It's in the chat.
That's all. All right. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
All right. Good luck, guys.
All right, Brandon, you got the floor.
All right. So yeah, this was my poster from last year. Obviously, this was how I built it virtually, and you can just kind of see how it's a very standard, run-of-the-mill, old-school poster. But I did add a QR code that actually takes you to a website that this was the original thoughts that I had for trying to expand out of the virtual space and having more room to talk. I think John talked about it earlier where he prefers the showcase now better because with a presentation, in-person presentation, you get your 15 minutes or whatever, and then you're booted off stage and there might be 6 other presentations going on. Whereas this can live for as long as you want. You can write as much as you want. You can tell your story however way you want through animations. And what I ended up doing this year, actually for the sake of this ad hoc group and to help you guys, I also built a GIS story map out of it, which is basically as simple as copying and pasting it's pretty much copying and pasting my poster. It follows the same flow, everything's the same, into a ArcGIS story map. A lot of the images can be easily input in. And another thing that I'm doing now is I'm currently helping another forecaster in our office who is presenting this year on how to build their showcase using story maps, as well as she had already provided a presentation to our office on this topic that was already saved as a YouTube file. So she has a 15-minute YouTube that she can link and embed into either ArcGIS story map. You can link those into your main poster. And I think, there's been a lot of questions about, how do I get people to come to these things? How can I get, the virtual people and the people they're presenting, and drawing them to this kind of story to where you're the storyteller is one way to do it. But also what you can do is a thought that I had for this person's presentation is to almost build, they'll have their main poster. All it is just going to be, a title, a catchy title, and drawing people to different links and QR codes to a YouTube video that she can present for virtual people that can watch, or people in person. The story map, she has slides already built out, different methods of people being able to view your presentation. And another way I thought of it is, I know Pat has done this to where, and this could be a good segue if we can ever get Pat back, is to try and build, turn my camera back on here, is to try and, build different YouTube videos, or if you have little video snippets to help guide those virtual people attending your presentation through your presentation without you actually being there, to where you can interact with both sets, guides them through the virtual one as you film how you would expect your presentation or to go, to help guide people, and then set up, times later in the meeting to meet with those people that do have further questions. That was something that I thought, working with this other individual, but just trying to find ways to interact if maybe you don't have that co-author, or just trying to find a way to drag people through the story, like if you were still there interacting with them one-on-one, but you might not be there one-on-one, but you can always use the chat function in Whova to set up hey, this is, if you have any questions, I'll be here throughout the meeting, or we can set up a time if you'd like to speak one-on-one or as a group. Just let me know, kind of ideas. So, I wanted to show this one because it showed how I took my presentation from last year, and very simply, it took me maybe 45 minutes to put together. The web page took a little longer, but copying and pasting a simple poster that you might already have, and using resources that you might have already built for a different conference or a different presentation into your showcase, you can expand that from just a very simple poster and then turn your poster into it. And the one thing I mentioned to the other forecast at the office was, now if she builds out this title slide with all these QR codes, it's very simple. You print off a couple for the table, and now it's very easy for people to just scan their phone, or you can you have it on the app. You can PDF it to the app as an image. You can have it on your table. Multiple ways to grab people's attention to where they can easily scan each of the codes. They can click them. Everybody will have their phone. So it's just one way to draw people to your table. You have something more than just your laptop and you sitting there. You have something tangible that can help guide people through the journey of whatever you designed. Back to you, Trevor.
Yeah. So what I loved about your presentation is that here's what it was and here's what it can be. And you absolutely hit the nail on the head, is that you've got X, Y, Z options rather than one option. You have the option of uploading the PDF. You have the option of doing the video. You have the option of linking to several different places. This is my presentation in person. This is what you're going to be walked through. So you have several different versions of your presentation you can do. Now, I understand you're not necessarily going to have the time to do 15 different versions of your presentation, and no one's asking you to. But if you do and you want to, this is not confining you to do it any one particular way. There's several different ways, several different directions. And I really wish Pat had a good internet connection, because he's the king of this, where what rules did you give me? I'm going to maximize this to the nth degree, and this is how I'm going to do it with sound and music even, and like also it's really, really good, amazing, but that's the point, is we want to enable you to have creativity, not confining you to a set dimension, because this is the construct of how we do this in person, is the most efficient way to do it. And so I do want to hear from Melissa, because she has a very different perspective of this. But before I do, I'm going to jump in your way on purpose, Melissa. But this is a segue, I promise. So during the webinar, we had mentioned some of the examples that all of us had done. And Francis asked this question about, or not Francis, somebody else asked a question about how to make it, promotable. But he had mentioned, I'm going to rethink my title. And that reminded me of how I approached my poster last year. And so I want to jump in front of Melissa real quick here's the poster that I gave 2020. So the first year when it was fully virtual. And I had shared a link, it's up in the chat a long time ago, of the science poster series that was listed by Michael. Can't remember his last name. It's up there in the chat, but he has a series on building science posters. And one thing that resonated to me is, like, you need to put your thesis statement up front, not your title. Your title is not your main message. Your thesis statement is. And so if you look at how I designed this one's not science-based necessarily, but more of an outreach and education-based. My title is in the upper right. It's smaller. It's secondary. My thesis statement is the giant screaming message on the front left, the first thing that catches your eye, right? So you see the colors, and then the first thing that it's drawn to is the orange color on the left, and then the big title. That's not my title. That was what I wanted you to see in the virtual space, so that you go there and go, wait, what are you saying? And then you go and look at the rest of the title, right? And you see the rest of the poster, you see some of these questions. I don't have any results on this poster. That was intentional, so that you come to me to and ask these questions, right? I didn't want you to already have the answer right there on the poster. That's not the purpose of what we're there to do, is have everything in. Why are you standing in front of your poster if you already have all the answers there? It's to be able to dive deeper into it. And so the QR code puts you right into an interactive poster that I knew that a lot of people would be on their phones. So this is the actual, share this tab, hold on, to this other tab. And this is what you got when you scan the QR code. So it was literally a simple Google Slides slideshow. So you would be able to see this on your phone and be able to literally touch these buttons, and it would act as sort of like an interactive poster that you yourself could get this information from. So if you just touched the button, it would take you to watching. Well, it worked then 2 years ago, but you could literally touch the buttons and take you to another slide that could guide you through some other stuff. So my poster was now in your hands. It wasn't just something that you had to look through Google Meet to get. So if you wanted to scan that QR code, you never even had to come to my session to get this either. You could just scan that QR code and boom, you're there. So you had this that you could play with on your phone while I'm talking to you. And then that would end up giving you some more questions potentially out of that. So a modified version of the poster. Does it look and feel like an old poster? Kind of. But it has a different design. It catches your eye. If you're scanning through 50 different posters at once, hopefully the color and the way that it's designed got you to go, well, that one's different. Let me click on that. And then simply having an option for people to interact with it in their hands, I think for the in-person session will be huge. If they don't have to necessarily sit down, they came with only their phone, and then they can QR, and then it's right there in their hands, and they have the ability to do that. Awesome. You know, they have now an option to interact with it next to you, or sit down and log in if they wanted to, or just talk to you about it later on if they wanted to, and corner you in another time during the conference. And so I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to jump in front of you, but I think yours, you did a great example of how to make a eye-catching come to my poster option through Canva. And that's my poster I just showed you was designed with Canva. In fact, the entire presentation we did at the beginning of this call was made in Canva yesterday. So that's a resource that I really wanted to highlight, that you can really do some amazing stuff with even the free version of Canva, but Melissa's going to show you more.
Yeah, let me get my screen shared here. Okay. Stand by. I've got to go into my system preferences. Pat did hop on. So if Pat wants to go ahead and show what he did, I will go ahead and get my system preferences done because we're recording. So my Mac is acting weird, and give me like 3-5 minutes and I'll have that figured out.
Can you guys? Okay. So this is what I did. So actually, I did the option of creating a movie inside the Hoover presentation. This is both for NWA and AMS. Did a little intro in here. I actually pointed to when the presentation was going to happen so that people could join at that time. And then if they weren't able to do it, I provided them with information at the bottom of the screen so they can connect with me later on. Hashtag. Also, if they had to, like any, they could do that. I also set up a Google Meet presentation as well. So I gave this video, and then during that time was free reign to just talk about the project and what I was doing. So this was a really good package to put together because it allowed me to, again, like John was talking about this earlier, like it's something that stays forever. Like now I have this really cool video that I put together instead of a piece of paper that's just hanging up, you know, somewhere in our office or rolled together somewhere. So I've got this now. And yeah, I love doing pop culture references. Something that's going to make it memorable that people are going to, they're going to remember, and they're going to want to go and talk to you. So I love using pop culture references any way I can. So those catchy things are really going to get people's attention, and you're going to have more visitors coming to see your stuff if you make it more interesting. So a lot of this was actually B-roll that I got. There's lots of free B-roll resources out there. I know the National Severe Storm Lab has a whole bunch of video that's available online and on YouTube too, that radar scanning different types of storms. So all of that information's out there. You can really go to like the media portions of different websites or like the press contacts, and you'll be able to see all of that B-roll that's available. So that's that you can use. And I'm using free software to put together these videos. I have a Mac, and so I was using iMovie to put all these together. It's drag and drop. What's really nice about iMovie is you can just drag and drop pictures and videos in there, so these are really easy to put together. And this way, it shows you kind of behind the scenes of what we're doing a little bit more, instead of just a piece of paper where like you're trying to describe stuff. Now you have things that are in motion and moving. So people are going to be really interested in seeing that. So those eye-catching things are really going to get people to pay attention. And then to promote this, I actually created a teaser that I posted on social media. I mentioned this in the chat earlier. So this teaser was kind of hinting us up that you were going to see, and I had Vanilla Ice playing in the background. So again, emphasizing that title a little bit more too. And so that was a way for to promote all this stuff, and then people would go in, click on the link. A little bit more of a marketing background from my previous job that I had for about 5 years. So it kind of helped out with a little bit of this stuff, but this is a really great creative way for you to make something that's going to last forever, and then you can post it on YouTube and people can watch of making this visual and making it conversational too. And you feel like you actually created a presentation instead of just sitting at, that, poster session where you're actually able to create the experience putting this together. And if anybody has any questions about where to pick up some of this stuff or other resources they need.
Something tells me, Pat, that doing it this way is better than you standing in front of a poster with Vanilla Ice and trying to like sing at people to come to their poster the whole time. Like trying to take on the role of like,
I am not
collaborate and listen.
I am not gonna even try and sing in front of my poster session. So yeah, we're not gonna have no DJ services, no karaoke happening. I mean, maybe if you want to, maybe you want to have like a little song contest at your poster or at your showcase place for all of this. So anyway, that you can be creative, make it fun. Like really, just make it fun and make it your own. That's why I really like this setup. Is now you can do pretty much anything you want. You're not just.
Yeah, so can I ask a follow-up then? Now thinking forward into going into a big room with a table and everything you did the previous year, how would you envision doing the interaction with people now? Like, what's that experience like, do you think? How would you change things, basically, is my question here.
Yeah. Some of the, I'd actually show them the simulations that we did with the forecasters. And then, I'd be able to pinpoint, like, we were testing inter-office collaboration. So I could show them, look, we set up these DSS events right along the border, and this forecaster was responsible for the storms that were in the northern portion of their CWA going into the other portion. The other forecaster had them in the south. So then I could kind of walk through these scenarios and see the stuff we tested out, and then let them know kind of what the forecasters were thinking, what their thought process was. Handle things different from people from different offices, simulations, and maybe even ask them or solicit them, like, if you were in the hot seat at that point, what would you, or like, would you hold on to that object longer until it goes into somebody's CW? Immediately when it touched just the very smallest part of your CWA. So I think being able to showcase those simulations right there in person would be a way to enhance.
Janice, Francis has this question here. It might be actually a question for you to answer. As it comes down to copyright issues, things of that sort, presenting online, things on YouTube, do you have any thoughts on or recommendations for people when they consider that moving into their presentations?
Yeah.
Great
Make
things
sure it's
for,
not
oh, Janice,
copyright.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, make sure it's not copyright protected, or you're not going to have to pay royalties, because of the part of the agreement we have is that you guarantee that you will not use something that's copyrighted. And yeah, I was wondering about Pat's music. Maybe he got it from a free source, but yeah, be careful with things like that, because if we ever put these out where they're more visible and somebody sees you use something that's copyrighted, it could get you and us in trouble. And if you're not sure about whether something's copyrighted or not, you can usually check the website, and like Pat said, go to their media page. And a lot of times they'll have information about what's copyrighted, what's not, and how you might be able to get permission to use it. Now, if it's something from the federal government, usually that holds no copyrights. But and like if Canva, if you use graphics from there, they grant you permission for that. But just kind of be careful where you're getting. If you just grab it straight off the web, even though a lot of people have used it, you may find out it's actually copyrighted.
All right, Melissa, you fired up ready to go?
I should be good. So let's test and try here. Okay. So I am going to put what I had as my poster during the poster session. So let me turn off my camera. If I can see my camera, I can't. So I have a little thing on the bottom. So what I had created was essentially this marketing piece in Whova as my poster. I didn't, because of the pandemic and the position that I was in, I was essentially editing my presentation all the way up until the conference. And something like this actually gave me the leverage to be able to continue to work on a presentation, even after I had turned that information in. So I went ahead and made this poster. It's essentially just like an advertisement so people can see it. You can scan the QR code. It was clickable as well as a PDF in there. So if you didn't want to scan it with your phone, you could click it and access it. And where it took was a story map. And I'll get to where I'm getting to after this, but I didn't really put a lot of GIS in this. If you have access to ArcGIS online, this is a really cool way to essentially create a presentation. I essentially put together a narrative through a chronological timeline and plugged in videos of me talking about each different, I guess, segment of my presentation. So there was some form of interaction throughout my entire quote unquote showcase or poster session. And I took it all the way through to us being impacted by a tornado during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in my county. But what I had did for the webinar was actually I recreated my poster as a presentation in Canva. So what's really cool is that I essentially, Canva is free. There's a free and a paid version of Canva. I used the free tools to build this. Different way, I kind of made it sort of like a scrapbook. And if you link your poster, let's say your advertisement to this, you can continue to work on this until it is time to present, or you can go ahead and get it all done at once. And I embedded my videos that I used in my story map. And I embedded the images that I used in my story map, along with pretty much everything that was in there in this 6 slide presentation. So this is a really cool way to take a non-traditional approach to a poster session. It allows you to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more flexible with what you could present. And I do kind of want to mention this, is it gives more leverage and leeway depending on what type of personality that you have. So let's say you're very introverted and you may not necessarily want to interact with somebody, but you want to be able to get as much interaction or information from somebody, and utilizing
a video and embedding videos in your presentation is a really good way to be able to create that interaction or allowing people to learn without physically having to talk to them or interact with them in a virtual platform. I know that's something that we had mentioned when we were brainstorming the showcase sessions, and being able to cater to both types of personalities is a huge thing. And this allows you to do that. And it may be that you could be mindful when creating your showcase presentations of the different types of personalities and people that you're going to be interacting with, so everybody can get fulfillment within your presentations. But it's kind of what I did. I took a different approach, kind of showing you how I had it when I physically presented, and then what I would create nowadays using Canva to make a showcase session.
Melissa, since you have Canva up to show that, do you want to show just some of the features that it has, to show like the templates that you have available to you, things like that?
Yeah, I can do that. Here, I'm going to go back to my home and my Canva. I'll reshare my screen. Let's see. So when you come into Canva, there's all types of templates. You can search templates. What I did for, let's say, let's go presentation. Let's go 16:9, standard PowerPoint. There's all kinds of templates that you can choose from if you want one. So this is an 11-slide presentation that's kind of already started and created for you. And you have many more, but that's also really cool. So let's say I want to do a blank one. I'm going to go ahead, delete all of this, and you can see all of the different things that you can add into Canva. So let's say I'm going to do something about snow. You've got all of these really cool graphics already readily created for you to kind of show a little bit more pizzazz on your presentation, maybe to create pops of color, or to be a little bit more creative, or to be more appealing to the eye. You can also embed videos in here as well. You can also upload your own photos. So I've been creating some different stuff personally, pulling in information from other things. So you can upload your own photos, your own videos. You can drag and drop them in there. Let's say text-wise, you have a lot of different types of text available to you. All these different types of fonts, different types of effects that you can apply to your text, depending on what you would like. You can curve your text. It's essentially kind of, if you're not a graphic designer, this is a really good way to be able to create a product that looks like it's been created by a professional. And it is a fantastic tool. I now use Canva to essentially create everything that I use at work, in terms of presentations, social media graphics, and things of the like. So Trevor, is there anything else that you kind of want me to highlight in here?
No, not really. To see the interface, I think, was mostly what I was getting at, because like I said, the presentation you saw this morning, earlier today, that was largely a template that I stole. That was it was called Brainstorm Template, and a lot of the slides, I basically took the gist of what that was, and I just literally typed in things like presentation, and then there was a person doing this. And so a lot of those graphics that you might not have, you don't want to draw them. I can't draw. So having really nice graphics that kind of illustrate your point. When I put in poster, there was actually 3 different science posters that I could choose from. It really made it really easy. And so it made it look like I did an exceptionally good PowerPoint, and I didn't do much at all. I literally just dragged some things here and did that, and then made 6 slides out of being able to do that. And then exported all of that now as either a slideshow or a PDF slide set or whatever you need, even a movie. So you can have the whole thing be playing as that, and then add a little bit of narration, and you're done. These presentations can take less than an hour sometimes, depending on how involved you want them to be. And with those tools that are available, you can do that really efficiently and easily. And so As Melissa mentioned, there's a free version of Canva. There's also a paid version. Obviously, what you pay for unlocks quite a bit more resources, but as anything else goes. But I think, Janice, you said it was okay to say that even the NWA pays for the service of Canva. So we are customers of it. So, you know, that it's something that we use pretty heavily ourselves to make graphics and things of that sort. But now that you've seen several different examples, you know, we planned on this being only 2 hours. That would mean that we have 5 minutes left. I certainly don't think we have to hard end it. Then we don't have a time restraint on us. And we didn't get really an opportunity for everybody to like ask their questions. If they had something they wanted to share with us and bounce things off of us, we certainly can do that part now. And like I said, this is very informal. So if you want to chat it, if you want to unmute and be like, I don't know how to reword my title, or I don't know how to do X or Y, just let us know. Maybe we can figure that out for you.
And I think I want to caution you all, Nicole posted about this, but your titles that were submitted with your abstract are what are going to be put into the app. And we can't really have everybody changing their title at the last minute. One, because there's just the resource to do that. And two, that's what you submitted and was approved. But you can make some changes on your slides and different things to get your point across, like Trevor was talking about earlier. So your title is going to stay as it was submitted.
Right, and you mean like in the app center, or what is it called? The artifact center, I think, Nicole.
Yeah.
So in that, what you're talking about is like the actual title that goes across the top there, but the image that goes there, that's where you have the freedom there.
Right.
Yeah, the title, your name, that will, in the abstract, it'll all be auto-filled for you. So you won't be able to change that, just so that you know that going in.
Yeah, like I said, I really like the example of just the person's like headshot. I'm like, oh, I know that person, you know, and so that's an effective way to kind of make people go, oh, what, I know that person, you know, friends with them or somebody that I've worked with before, and so I can go, oh, their title's, oh, okay. So that's an interesting, effective way to you know, pull eyes towards that, and it's different. Right off the bat, I was like, poster, 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 poster. They all had their pros and cons, but then I see a person's face, and I'm like, oh, I know that person. It's actually kind of a genius move.
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuted when I coughed. Sorry about that. And there is a speaker area in the app. So you can put your picture in the speaker area and put other contact information so people can search either on the title, you know, keywords, or on your name to find out when you're presenting.
And one little detail you might have asked, and Brandon just asked me offline, it might not have seemed immediately intuitive that you know, the people that are coming in person, maybe they want to interact with the virtual attendees in that topic. There will be a space for being able to do that. We haven't decided yet whether or not that's going to be like a table that has nobody sitting at it, or if it's going to be a space that's separate, that's maybe quieter even, that could be in the side of the room, or maybe even sunroom. Those logistics we haven't quite hammered out yet, but there will be a place for you to be able to interact with virtual presenters also. Okay, so one last opportunity here. If anybody wants to share a concern or anything along those lines before we end, feel free. Okay, not hearing any. I just wanted to say thank you for all that held on for this long. Also, everybody who's took 2 hours of their evening to help explain this to a lot of folks. I feel like only a few people dropped off after our questions and Q&A, and then a lot of people stuck around to kind of hear some of these ideas. And so I'm hoping that we're continuing to help make this a little less anxiety driving and a little bit more exciting at that level. So I really wanted to praise John for all the thought that's gone into this so far, establishing this team and to get us to where we are so far. And there's a lot more work to do. So we're looking forward to really hammering this out based off our discussion today, our webinar from before, your feedback as well. So if you haven't filled out that survey about what questions you have or whether you're going to be attending virtually or not, please do, because that helps us logistically solve some questions about how many tables that we're going to need, all those things. So please do if you haven't already. But otherwise, I'm ready to say that I think we can probably end it here.
Can I jump in really quick, Trevor?
Go ahead, Nicole.
If you don't have that survey link anymore, that's okay. We'll send it to you in your next email. So just be on the lookout in your inbox for emails from Factor 110, HUVA, and also us, the NWA. And especially if you have a NOAA account, sometimes our emails will get lost in your spam or your clutter folders. So kind of be checking that often as well. And if you haven't heard from us for a while, we're always here to answer your questions and help. So you can, I'll put that email in the chat again, but you can always email us at annualmeeting@nwas.org for questions.
Thank you, Nicole. And anything else that we didn't cover, John, that you want to make a mention of? Parting words, anything?
More parting words. Thanks everybody for attending. This was fantastic. I think it went really well. Trevor, thanks for your leadership. Thanks to everybody on the ad hoc committee. Over the next couple of weeks, probably we'll try to get all the showcases allocated and get that information out as far as timing. But again, just want to encourage folks, if you have questions, comments, concerns, let us know. We're learning together. We know it's not going to be perfect. We know there's some very obvious logistical difficulties that we're going to try to overcome, but I think we've got a great group of people and really appreciate everybody's willingness to go on this journey with us over the next month or so. And I'm super excited to see everybody in Pittsburgh. My background is PNC Park, excited to go see some baseball. I'm a big Braves fan. They're in town. Melissa's another Braves fan, so it's going to be just fantastic. I can't wait to see everybody in Pittsburgh.
Same here. Looking forward to not seeing you all on a screen and seeing you all in person, and the people that we will see in screen. Looking forward to seeing their presentations as well. So thank you, everybody. Let's end it here. And again, if you have any questions, you know where to email it. You can reach out to any of us, obviously. We'd be happy to help you. But otherwise, we'll see you in Pittsburgh in August.